Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like him. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.
What's up, y'all? I'm KC.
And I'm Tyler.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast.
What is happening, all you turkey-eating people? Guess what?
Teetle.
This thing is going to release on Thanksgiving Day, and I hope that you are fat and sassy off of some turkey. Maybe you killed that turkey this year in the fall. How cool would that be? Did y'all know that was looked down upon by some people?
It is, man.
Do you think that those pilgrims back in 1613 killed those turkeys in the spring whenever it was ethical?
And then just put them in the fridge until the fall? Exactly. Yeah, I think that's probably what they did.
Have you ever listened to that edict about the first Thanksgiving or read it? They read it at church on Sunday, and it's pretty cool.
I think I watched the SNL skit.
I think it's a little different. But guys, if y'all haven't looked at that, it's kind of neat, man. It's pretty base. So before we get going into too much hunting talk, because there's a lot of hunting talk. Let's talk about being thankful a little bit. I'm very thankful for y'all because there's a little shake in my voice there. I don't know if y'all heard it because it's sincere. This year's been awesome, and as the Element, we are actually making some ground as far as like being able to possibly provide for our families in the future doing this, and that's cool. So it's very cliche to say, but it's the truth. And that's all because of y'all. So we thank y'all very, very much. Huge deal.
It's something that you and I actually just got on a different podcast and talked about the same thing and how this is something that I've wanted to do. I've wanted to work in hunting since I was 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And I talked about it. If you watch the Ranch Buck series, I talked about it, like how much I've really just loved deer, and hunting them and everything about them, man. I've drawn pictures of deer. I was telling you this a while back. May have said it on the podcast already, but like I was going through some old artwork. I was trying to get some stuff for that monologue at the beginning of the Ranch Buck video. And I started to realize like how long I've been drawing pictures of deer. And because you just kind of think, well, the Element started in 2016, whatever, and you kind of think back that far, and you're like, yeah. And really, it was like way before that, and it was never about making money hunting deer. It was about having fun hunting deer, and we were able to kind of do both right now, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank y'all, and I mean, we would be remiss, I believe is the right word, to not thank God for the opportunities, right? I mean,
absolutely, man.
Y'all know who we are. Y'all know what we're about. So if you've been listening this long, you ain't shy about us talking about our Creator, right? And we're very, very thankful for Him and for the blessings He sends our way. And we've been talking about this a lot too. Like, you and I are both big proponents of. That's right. Big ones.
This time of year.
That's right, dude. Dadgummit, I got an XL shirt on right now. But we don't buy into a prosperity-based gospel, right? Like, but at the same time, God does send prosperity, right? But that's not what we hang our hats on. Our faith is not based in that. However, we are thankful for whenever he does send it our way. So
we talked about that after I shot a different deer that we're going to talk about on a different podcast. But
right.
just the blessings, man.
Man.
It's such a if you have the right mindset and you have the right doctrine, then you take it as like just such a granted grace, man, in your life when you get to kill a deer. It's pretty
Absolutely,
awesome,
man. And I was thinking about this a lot the other day. Like the whole nation. This is really a United States based holiday, like the 4th of July is. Right? It really is U.S. because it was the Pilgrims who sailed over and kind of established what would become the United States, right? And so it's very localized to our country. And if you are sending Thanksgiving just out into the universe, not acknowledging to whom that Thanksgiving is given to, then there's really no reason to be thankful.
That's right.
Like I can't imagine if I didn't believe in God. Like, what would I be thankful for?
Who are you thankful to?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there are people that would maybe give you opportunities or provisions that you could be thankful to.
Yeah.
But
sure.
when it comes to the work that you put in to make money to have your house, it's kind of hard to be thankful to anybody but yourself at that point, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
So it's kind of like I feel the same way. Not to steal your thunder here, people kind of talk about and I've said the same thing. I don't mean it this way, but like some people that have that struggle, it's like man, you got to send good vibes into the universe kind of thing. It's like universe don't care about you. Them stars over there don't care about you.
That's right, man. That black hole gonna suck you in.
Anyway.
But anyways, guys, be thankful. Hope you're having a great time. Take time to spend time with your family.
Yeah.
I know that we are all so focused on big giant bucks, and for good reason, because that's what we love. It's what we're passionate about, and that's what connects all of us together. But it's also a good opportunity for us to all acknowledge that that's not all there is out there. But here recently, it's been a big part of what's out there. Ooh, man. So if y'all have not done it, we did kind of a part one, or not, if you haven't listened, sorry. Who knows what you've done. But we did kind of a part one of this where we talked about the buck that I killed on public land in Kansas. And you had a little bit of input there, but we kind of had different hunts for a lot of reasons.
Hunt your hunt, right?
That's right. Hunt your hunt, man. But there is a part two to this because 2 public land bucks went down in Kansas in early November, which is wild, dude. It's the first time it's ever happened for us. This is a scenario we've dreamed about for a long time.
Yeah. Because
not that, there is definitely some bittersweetness from my point of view, at least, of not getting to go up to camp in Kansas quite a bit this fall, November, December, like I have in the past. But at the same time, get to do some new stuff now. But we'll talk about that stuff later. Tyler, we left off. You had just shot a giant Kansas buck. It just so happened that I had shot that deer before you did, and you helped me. You helped me by making sure that he expired quicker than he would have before. So from that moment on, let's just kind of take off right there.
Yeah.
And you kind of express what happened from that point on.
Well, now you're making me realize that I lied to Tony earlier. I've actually shot 5 public land deer this year. But anyway, so basically, I don't know how much of this I talked about, so I won't go too far into I was in Kansas for 11 days.
Yeah.
And so
you didn't talk too much about it.
Yeah. Basically, I'll kind of bring us back to that point here real quick. But starting out, I knew that there was not – my dad has a lease up there. I get to hunt it anytime I want pretty much. I'm kind of the low man on the pole there. So I don't step on anybody's toes. I don't get into anybody's deer spots or whatever. I try to kind of just make my way out there. And I typically don't shoot deer on that place because there's usually not like a 5-year-old deer in a spot that I can chase them very effectively, or something that I would want to shoot that's mature enough because they're trying to grow a big deer, right? And so what usually happens is you and I go try to chase deer on public or a couple other permission properties we have where we can shoot a 140 if it comes out and it's 4 years old or whatever. Not that they would be mad if I shot that deer, but I just am trying to help them get to their goals on that property. And so anyway, this year, my dad, because Chris B decided to shoot the biggest deer he could ever shoot on public last year in Kansas, my dad didn't draw a tag this year, and I'm definitely blaming Chris. And so, first time in like 20 years, he didn't draw a tag. So he's not hunting the lease. A couple other guys that are on the lease are not hunting this year. Our buddy Drew and his dad are hunting. And they're kind of hunting pretty far from any of the stuff that my dad hunts and where I hunt. And so basically I'm like, well, this is a pretty good opportunity for me to hunt the lease this year and really focus in on a deer and try to play KC's favorite game of cat and mouse.
Oh, man. He just skirted me.
He just knew that I was there and decided to just stay just far enough away from my bull. Anyway, so I had thought, man, this would be a good opportunity for me to chase a really big buck. And there was two bucks on the property that I would consider targets. Both 10 points, I thought. Actually, turns out one was an 11 typical. The other one was a 10 typical with some had dual kickers on his G2s, and one of them broke off. Real heavy, kind of tight racked, but just a slob-bodied deer. And then the 11 point is, we think, 7, I believe, because you videoed this deer in 2017, and he's in the nameless video at the beginning.
That is likely the first buck I ever took video footage of as a member of the element.
Baby.
How cool is that?
That is cool.
Yeah.
Well, he was 3, we assume, in 17, so that, I believe, if my math is right, makes him 7 this year.
It's a pretty old deer.
Yeah. And, dude.
When there's 7 up there, you're talking about, like, brimmers.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
big.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of the one that I was wanting to see, but I didn't think I had a very good chance of shooting. So, because they were at 2 different areas, kind of. And so, anyway, I'll bring us kind of back here pretty quick. Basically, over the course of the first couple of days, I was feeling pretty good, and we got a little bit of cool weather and some overcast, and I was seeing a ton of bucks, like bucks that weren't on any of the game cameras or anything. And I got some cool footage of bucks. Like when y'all are going to see this stuff on YouTube pretty soon. We just started that Kansas series, actually, and it's a cool video. If you haven't watched it, you need to go watch it. The first one, KC chases an even bigger deer than the one he shot on public.
You were there with me for that, that chase, too.
Yeah. And so we got video footage, really good footage of that buck. Go check it out on YouTube if you haven't. But there's going to be a lot more buck footage throughout this series of deer that I saw cruising. Cool things happening. Deer rubbing trees, making scrapes, chasing does, cruising like zombies, all kinds of stuff. I passed deer that are close to 150, probably. A couple of 10 points.
That's the weird
really
part
close
about this, that it's cool that you get to hunt that place, but like those are all deer that you would be hammering if we're out on public, you know. But and that's kind of what you've talked about in the past of like kind of the Achilles heel of hunting that place is that you have to have a deer to hunt. Yeah,
exactly. And those deer that I'm seeing that I don't have on trail camera, I got to make quick decisions. And so like if he don't look like a slob old body, then I'm pretty much passing it. And I don't know how old these deer are, but you know, I think I've seen enough deer to make pretty decent assumptions at whether a deer is 3 or 4 or, 5, 6, 7, something like that. So anyway, got good footage over the first couple of days. And then all of a sudden, I started not feeling good one afternoon. And over the course of the next 6.5 days, I lost all liquids that I could pretty much possibly lose. It's the best way I can say it. I mean, I would drive to hunt. I would get out of my truck when I got to where I was going to walk in, and I would throw up. And then I would walk in and hunt in misery for like 3 hours, come back out. When I got to the truck, I'd throw up, get back in, and drive home.
That property's on the state line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
drive back home. Is that what you're saying?
Driving over Missouri and
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. So, I was literally sleeping in the middle of the day and then sleeping at night as much as I wasn't in the bathroom.
Eric and I would get back from hunting and you would be in bed no matter what time of day it was.
Yeah, I know. I felt terrible. And so, I was at the point where like, I no doubt if I was up there, just doing this thing, like we talked about at the beginning, we get a chance to have fun and make some money doing this. If I wasn't making money doing this, I would have been taking a couple days for sure. Well, 6 days later, I'm still feeling terrible. And then finally start to feel a little bit better. And I think it was like the first day that I started feeling better and I noticed that I was feeling better. And that was when you shot your buck. And that whole story played out on the last podcast. We're getting in trouble because we haven't put out very many podcasts lately, and some people are kind of calling us out on it. And our buddy Dan actually said we're killing more deer than we're putting out podcasts right now, which I think is actually true.
It has to happen that way sometimes, man.
It's
the
just
more
November.
killing you do, the less podcasts there are.
That's right.
If you've been here since 2017, you know that we can make an hour-long podcast off of seeing two does. So like
that's right, dude. Oh, some of them. Podcasts in your RV will just be forever in my mind, man.
Oh, man.
Just so nostalgic. Those are good times, man.
It was. Might do RV one of these days. Who knows?
Yeah.
You just never know what's going to happen.
I might, for sure. People keep shooting deer on my property. Anyway, so KC shoots his deer. The whole thing happens like we talked about. I help him kind of get it, out or whatever, take pictures and do all the video wrap up and everything. Awesome deer, huge deer, man. Like, I was so stoked, man, that you shot that deer because he's big, dude.
He is big.
He's big.
I'm glad you said that because it's one of those deals where, like, he shrinks in my mind. And then I went back out there, like yesterday, I got out his antlers so I could show my brother-in-law. He's in from Washington. And I was like, dude, I forgot.
I know, dude. He's big, man. And like, I felt, like you got like 2 days of glory, and then all of a sudden, Muy Grande came out.
I ain't worried about that, dude.
I know you're not.
Yeah.
And I told Kaylee that. I was like, I know KC, he's as humble as they come, but like,
oh, don't worry. I wish I would have shot your deer. Don't get me wrong.
yeah, for real.
No, I'm not upset about my deer at all.
Yeah, I felt like I was like, dang, I just stole all the thunder from a giant buck that KC killed. You know,
dude. Thunder's rolling right now.
Yeah. So,
that's right.
So,
in the copyright, we're gonna get flagged.
Canceled tonight. So, anyway, so we get the deer out, we get all it done, and basically, I think you hung around one day after, maybe?
Yeah, I was there for a full day and then left the next morning because that was my intended plan anyways. Was to I left out at 2 a.m. because I had a sick kid at home.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, hey, the quicker you get home, the better. And I kind of, not that I was trying to like avoid my family or anyways, but it was like, what's another 6 hours going to do? I could have left that next evening. But I'm definitely the guy where I would rather get up early and drive than stay up late and drive.
Oh, me too. Yeah. For sure. I'm the same way.
So that's what I did. And it was just, it's good to kind of have the closure of hanging out with y'all and cooking and hanging out some. Because
eating pizza.
Oh, yeah. Not often do we get the opportunity to, like, take a breath while we're still on a trip.
I know, dude.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that you don't understand me, but in South Dakota, you did at least shoot on day 4.
Yeah.
So you went straight into cameraman mode, so you're working your tail off doing that, Yeah. But there is at least just some, like, pressure off.
Right, yeah.
But I'm, like, last-minute man, it seems like, on all these trips,
Yeah.
In which you got a part of that, too, and that's what we're talking about now.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So, you stayed around, and we had a good time, man. I just it's the best time of year, dude, to be in November in deer camp with your buddies, man. Like, it's just the best, man.
When it's not, like, death cold.
Yeah.
It was pretty nice weather.
Nice weather. Yeah. We were with football on TV almost every night, It's just like, it's good. It's good. So, Anyway, you left out. Well, so that day we're hunting this deer again, and I'm making like micro moves, dude. I'm like hunting like, 40 yards away from the last place I hunted or whatever, and trying to figure this deer out. And I finally figure out through trail cameras looking at this deer. Like, here's the issue is I was so sick that I was like zombie mode. I was just like, it was literally like get up. It was everything I could do to get up in the morning, especially after being sick all night, and drive 35 minutes to this place, to the lease, and get in a stand that was already pre-hung. It was like I was so thankful that I had some pre-hung sets, but I started I did move a few times and do some hanging hunts, especially later in the sickness, which I'm just drained. I mean, I at one point I was sick 4 days, and I remember calculating like on one hand the things I had eaten in those 4 days. It was like, 2 breakfast burritos, a banana and a half, and some crackers. Like a half a bowl of chicken soup. But anyway, so we do a hang one morning. Eric and I do a hang. And another reason I think this food sickness is because I was in camp with like 5 dudes and nobody got sick. But we do a hang one morning. And I had figured out this deer, I think, was coming from the east. And so that gave me, I couldn't just hunt my dad's pre-hung stand in that situation, really. Because I had already spooked that deer earlier in the trip. He was getting my wind coming from the east, which is, they usually are coming from the south in this area. And so we hang, and that morning we have a really good buck. We got footage of him, it's sick footage. It's like he's like 10 yards, and he's a big 8. No, I think he's a 10 with a broken G3 or something like that.
So you got crabs? Is that deer?
He's kind of got some crabs, I think. Yeah. But he's big frame, and like he comes in, I grabbed my bow thinking it was the 11 point when I first saw him, at pretty close range. And I'm like, how many times does he have? And Eric, of course, can't see it. But anyway, he's looking through the camera and trying to focus and all that. But like we didn't know for sure, but then he got closer and I was like, oh yeah, it's not him. Well, he was big enough to scare me for sure. And I grabbed my bow and everything. Well, he goes off, and later that morning, I'm like, we're leaving in 30. And because we hadn't seen much, and it's been a bunch of cows came through. Well, it just gets quiet or whatever. And I was like, we're leaving 30 if we don't see anything, because the cows had just gotten out there. And so I thought, well, I'll rattle, and that'll give them 30 minutes to do something, and then we'll know for sure that they didn't hear the rattling and nothing came in. So I rattle, and like 5 minutes later, I look up across this opening to the east, and I'm like, there's a buck. And I could tell he's big, He's like 100 yards maybe, max. Pull my binos up. I'm like, it's the 11. And so he like is coming kind of perpendicular to us, and he's kind of working to my downwind side, which if you know anything, you probably feeling for me right now. So he is working perpendicularly. So I'm like, Eric's kind of like, well, should we grunt him or something like that? And I'm like, I don't know. And I think about it. I get my grunt call.
Pretty still this morning?
Yes. Yeah.
So I've, like, not to interrupt your story, but like to throw a little tactic in here, it seems like, of course, this is kind of like common sense, but on the still mornings, they can pinpoint that a lot better, and they know to be further away from it to go smell it. Like if it's windy, sometimes you can get them in range trying to get your wind because they don't know where it really was, and they know that the wind is kind of heavy, so they need to be close to whatever that is. Those still mornings like that, man, they know exactly. They know.
Dude.
They know.
And he was working downwind, and I was like, I'm sitting there, watching him, and so I finally decide to hit him with a grunt and see if he'll come over, because I'm sitting on the edge of some real thick cedars, so I'm thinking, well, if he hears the grunt, maybe he'll think, there's something, and it's also a little drop down towards the creek, so like I'm thinking he'll think there's something he can't see right there, and deer chasing and stuff, because I've been hearing a bunch of grunting and stuff. Grunt at him. He stops, looks up at me, and I'm like, I'm like, don't move, or whatever. Don't grunt at him or anything like that. And when they're looking, I'm usually not grunting or making any noise or movement or anything. And so he goes back down. He's acting weird. He's kind of walking fast and like he's real kind of on edge. It's a weird look. It's not even like just, thinking that something's there. It's like more. It's like he's almost spooked. And but I know he doesn't have our wind yet, and he keeps working. perpendicular going towards our wind. I hit him again, a grunt. Long story short, I grunt him maybe 3 or 4 times. And he's still just acting weird. And so he goes perpendicular, and he's going to get pretty close to our wind at this point. And so when he turns his head and starts walking, I just put my bow up because I'm like, he's at this point, he's getting further from us just slightly, you know. Mm-hmm. He's about to get our wind. So I put my bow back on the hanger. And I'm like, dadgummit, he's not coming. And Eric's like, you want to snort wheeze him or something like that? And I'm like, nah, I don't know. And so I'm thinking about it for a minute, and it gets over to the tree line that I'm sitting on where he should be getting our wind. It's blowing right down this tree line. And I put my binos on him, and I'm like, I'm going to snort wheeze him. Just kind of last desperation attempt. And so and he looks up, and I'm looking through my binos, right? He looks back at me, and then all of a sudden takes 3 fast steps back where he came from. And I'm like, is he about to come? And then about the time he takes his 3rd or 4th step there, a flash comes through my binos, and it is another giant buck running past him down the tree line right beside him. And then that buck flips out the 11 point and goes following this buck down the tree line. I'm like, what in the world just happened?
So the giant buck was more downwind of you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that deer came flying past him. And everybody freaked out and took off going. And so I'm like, what just happened? So, anyway, Eric, I'm like, did you get footage? He's like, yeah, I got footage. I was like, you got footage of the big one, the 11 point? He's like, yeah. And so I'm like, well, that's cool, but I'm really hacked that it blew the whole thing up and kind of relocated this deer from where he had been, I think, bedding and stuff for the day, most of the trip I was up there. So I was like, not feeling good about my chances the rest of the few days that I had, 2 days or whatever that I had.
Let me ask you something right quick. I've done, you have done, we have done this year a decent amount of that last ditch snort wheeze.
Never works.
Mm-mm. I think I'm going to try to start having enough self-control to not even do it.
I think so too. I almost did that day.
Yeah.
I'm talking, I just last minute I was like, maybe he doesn't smell us because he's still acting. He was acting so weird, dude. It was weird to me. Mm-hmm. And, so I did, but I almost didn't.
I got to figure out the snort wheeze thing though, because I'd like to be able to snort wheeze deer in, but yeah. I think I don't really know how to do that the right way.
Yeah, I think it's got to be. The deer can't be at all on edge or weird. Mm-hmm. He's got to be just, in normal state, and then also for him to come to you, he's got to be in a hacked off kind of state.
So that brings up the question. Any deer that you snort wheeze in, could you have grunted that deer in too and had the same result? Or is there a deer that won't come to a grunt that will come to a snort wheeze?
I think the idea, in my opinion, the snort wheeze is I can make a snort wheeze carry farther than a grunt. And another thing that I noticed, this is the cool thing about when you get to hunt places that there's lots of deer and you get to watch deer and stuff and be close to them. I was noticing, I told you this, but that the most noticeable noise in the deer woods for deer is a kind of noise, because I was testing this on does, and because I would literally burp and they wouldn't look up.
Yeah.
But if I went like that, I mean, it was really with my nose, and they would freak out and look up right at me, And so I started thinking, I think that's just a noise that bucks make a lot when they're hacked or when they are really randy and ready to go. I think that's a noise that they make, and it's so if the does have been harassed at all by bucks at that point, they are freaking out whenever they hear something like that. Also, it also sounds like a leaf, like something moving
around
through.
You've talked about that quite a bit. Maybe it's the sound predators make when they're kind of rustling through the grass or something too.
Yeah.
I've heard you say that before.
So anyway, I tested that this week and it worked. The week that we're talking about, but so the snort wheeze didn't work. The desperation snort wheeze. And I'm so confused at what just happened. And so we kind of sit there for a while, just kind of in disbelief that we were yards from killing this deer, and that now it seems really, really out of touch.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. And so we get out, we go back to camp, and we put the SD card from the camera, or we put the footage on a hard drive, and we start to look at it. I'm like, which clip is it? And I look, and I'm like, that is not the 11 point. And he's like, what? I'm like, this is that 10 point with the broke G3 that we saw earlier in the morning. And he's like, what? And what happened was I don't know exactly what happened, but I think that there's a possibility because this 11 point, we've seen him for several years now. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've ever seen him with a broke tine. And I just don't feel like he's a fighter. And I kind of wonder if he and that 10 point heard this rattling thing and they all both started to come out in the same kind of area. And the 10 point just bullied him and pushed him kind of out of the way, essentially, and that buck, that's why that buck was kind of in a hurry I don't even know if he was trying to get downwind of us or not necessarily. He was just getting pushed out into the open away from this 10 point. And turns out that 10 point was walking kind of the same line behind that 11 point, probably pushing him. And I never saw that deer. And apparently Eric never saw the 11 point. And so he was videoing the 10 point when they broke G3 while I was looking at the 11 point. And I don't know what he was thinking, but I bet when I was moving and hanging my bow up while he was looking at a deer that was alert videoing, I bet he was like, what is this guy doing? I'm like, because I was like.
There's 3 big deer?
2. There was.
The 10 point's the flash?
No, so the other 10 point with the broke G3 is just a deer that we hadn't had on camera yet. But I saw him that morning.
Okay, so there's the broke G3, there's 11, and then there's a third big buck.
Heavy 10. Okay. Yeah, he's bigger than this particular 10.
Yeah.
So anyway, this broke G3 buck probably is just sitting there watching me hang my bow up and grunt and move, because I'm only moving when the 11 point's not looking at me.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, they're not doing the same thing at the same time. So I think that things just got real weird. I spooked that deer. He ran through the past 11 point. Anyway, so that's what happened the morning before. I can't remember what we did the evening. I think we hunted over kind of by the stand that I kind of claim somewhat. And I don't know that we saw a ton at all. Or maybe we hunted back down there by my dad's stand. We didn't see much, really. And then the wind was going to change that morning. And so I was like, I started looking at it. I was trying to make it work somewhere on either one of those stands. And it's like the worst wind that either one of those stands could have. And I'm like, man. And I'm so just disappointed because here's what my mind is thinking. I've been up here it's November 10th, night of November 10th now. I've been here since the 1st, hunting every day hard through the best part of the entire year, right? And for 6 days of the best week of the year, I am dog sick, not able to make good decisions, not able to move around and be mobile much, and self-filming because you were on the ground, so we know you needed a camera guy. So I'm just mentally just drained at this point, and I'm really struggling. And I don't I've been pretty good at not being as pessimistic as I was the first few years that the element was hunting together. And dude, I just got defeated, and I was exhausted, I was dehydrated, and I kind of had this just mental thought that man, I've missed out big time. And for those of you that don't know, here at my ranch, got way different situation this year, and it's not looking good for me. And so I'm thinking I can't go home and shoot a buck because I hadn't had nothing on camera. And Kansas, KC's tagged out. The other 2 tag holders on the place are tagged out. So there's no camp going to happen for the rest of the year. I'm feeling real bummed about that I'm going to be the only guy up here being that's I told somebody, I was I don't want to be Mr. December every year. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to come up here and kill deer when it's 0 degrees every year. Yeah. It'd be nice to kill one when it's decent weather. So anyway, I'm thinking all that, and I'm thinking I just got this weird feeling that I'm hunting this one deer that is almost impossible to kill, coming in on good wins for him, and betting in an odd spot and all this stuff. And I told KC, I texted him, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was along the lines of dude, this sickness has just whooped me, man. I'm feeling like I'm not going to kill another deer this year. It's just a weird feeling that I've got. And I told Kaylee the same thing. I texted her the same thing. I just feel like I'm not going to shoot another deer this year. of course, I'm being a little more, negative than usual because I'm just sick and not feeling good. Well, that wind was bad, and I had spooked that deer and everything. So I was like trying to make plans for the morning, and I told Eric, I was like, well, I guess we'll go over to that public piece that we could hunt on that wind pretty decent in the morning, and we'll sit over there and watch and just see what happens, as they say. And so Eric and I decided to split up that morning, and we watched, because there's two drainages that we were feeling. I mean, there's multiple drainages on this property, but there's two that we really felt like could have some action or whatever, you know. So we split up so we could see them. And it got light that morning. It was cold. I went out there. We got out there early.
Just in the morning, I'm on the road?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so...
That's the 10th?
This is the 11th.
Okay.
Thursday, I think. And you shot the 9th?
I shot the 8th.
Oh, maybe you weren't on the road anymore.
I guess there's a whole day in there where I wasn't there that y'all...
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, it was cold. I got out there and I put my coveralls on and just sat in the grass looking at the stars for like 20 minutes and closed my eyes a little bit and rested because I was still exhausted, and prayed a little bit and just kind of watched the sunrise take the stars away. You know, it was a really, really nice, peaceful morning, but it was kind of decent wind and cold, but I was fine. Sat out there, and all of a sudden it starts, sun coming up and everything. Sun starts to kind of hit the landscape a little bit. Haven't seen like any deer. And all of a sudden I see like 3/4 of a mile away, I see 3 does, or I see 1 doe. And I put my binoculars up and I can see 3 of them, and they're standing weird in the middle and, wide open. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's a buck in there for sure. Who knows what he looks like, but there's a buck standing there holding them all there, And so I watch for a little bit, and one of them disappears, and then all of a sudden I see a giant-looking buck show up down in this little. It's like a bowl where like some of these drainages kind of head out, And I see a giant buck, so I texted or called Eric, and I said, "Hey, I've got a big buck over here. Why don't you come over here and we may make a move on him or something. We'll watch him."
Which is legal because Eric's not a tag holder, so you can tell him anything you want to about where a deer is.
And I also didn't tell him where the deer was.
That's right.
I just said, come over here to me.
I can see a big deer.
We're 3/4 of a mile from this thing, I want him to come video me. That's what I want him to do. And so he comes over, and we sit there and watch this buck and these does for a couple of minutes, and then they kind of disappear. I don't know. I may have disappeared before he got there. I can't remember. But I said, I think they did. And I was like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure if they leave that little bowl, I can see them go anywhere from there. So I felt pretty good about sitting there. So we sat there for a while. Like we might have sat there for 45 minutes or an hour at least after we lost them. Watched 2 other bucks kind of move through, a little tiny like spike or whatever come right past us. And finally I was like, all right, let's just walk around the lip of this draw right here and go up to this hill and see if we can see down in there. So we moved a few hundred yards. And as soon as I came up over this hill, like I kind of start working slow, and I could see down in the draw. As soon as I work up over the hill, I see a big old rack down in there. And it's like a half mile still, but I can see it naked eye. And I was like, all right, there he is. So we watched him for a few minutes, and dude, he was like out of his mind. Like he was locked in on the does. He did not want him to go anywhere. He was holding them pretty high in the draw. I guess because he knows the more draw, the further he goes down in the draw, the more bucks he could encounter, So he's holding them pretty high, like pretty tight to their food source, really. He's like, he would be standing or whatever, and he would look down. I couldn't see any of the does, but I could tell where he was looking at them, and I couldn't really see because of a little hill or whatever down there, but I knew pretty much where the does were, and I never saw the does from this point forward. And he would stand up and he'd look at them for like 5 minutes, and then he would bed down. And he there was a time when he bedded down, and I bet you 5 seconds later he got back up, and he would just stand up and he'd walk like 3 steps and like be looking at the does, and then he'd stand there for 5 minutes, and he'd bed down for 2 minutes, and then he'd get back up, and he'd kind of relocate. I mean, he was moving in like a 10-yard area back and forth.
Man, I love that.
Dude, he was alert.
Yeah.
I mean, locked in, dude. It was
That
nuts.
reminds me of remember the actually, you helped me chase that big buck on the ground in 2019. He was acting the exact same way.
Yep.
I mean, I think I could have walked up to him whenever he was that way. You know, like he just doesn't give a hoot about anything else.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, it really is like when he would bed down even, he would just be full alert ears looking at those does, you know? And like he was doing that for a while. And then finally, go ahead.
I think that also this is one of the times whenever like the factors that are unknown to us really play in. I would imagine that night he had quite the fest out there with other bucks chase. Like I think they get all hyped up all night long, and that's what gets them that way.
I bet that's right, man. I mean, and he was just so on edge, dude. And so finally he bedded down for like 10 minutes or something, and I was like, and the sun's getting higher, right? And so I'm like, man, they're going to stay there. He's going to keep those does right there. He may get up and down several times. I don't know, but like they're going to stay right there. And he's been sitting down for about 10 minutes now. He kind of relaxed a little bit. And so I'm like, I'm guessing what has happened is the does finally bedded and didn't get up or anything for a while. And that he could just tell the demeanor of them that they were going to bed there all day. And he didn't have to work quite as hard. So anyway, I'm like making a plan, looking at Onyx. Onyx was huge in this. Like, I was able to, they were huge. I was pretty proud of myself because it's very, gentle landscape to say the least, and not a whole lot of identifiers.
Boy,
and
it's tough.
Yeah, I marked this deer real close from a half mile, but it took a while. I mean, it took me 5 to 10 minutes of looking at stuff and matching stuff up. And
I tell you what else helps with that too is familiarizing yourself with the area on Onyx before you even get there.
Yeah.
Because like if you're trying to triangulate, different creeks and stuff like that, like if you know your way around the map, you can do that stuff.
That's right. And also like having an idea of like elevation, what elevation looks like on the map as compared to what it looks like in real life. And that was the one question I had was like, should we go up this way around to the left or this way around to the right down into the bottom? And like, because I didn't want to come from, essentially, if I'm looking at this buck, the does are all on his left. So I thought if I go to the right, once I get in range of him, I'm going to get, that hill's not going to be there anymore. And their does are going to see me. And so I was like, well, and also, he's facing downwind, which is going straight to us. And so I was thinking if I could come up from the right and get kind of over his shoulder, he wouldn't see us because he's bedded kind of facing downhill and, back towards me. So if I come from up above him, he wouldn't be able to see me, but the does would. But maybe I can stay in like the bushes and grass and stuff real low and get there. And then I thought, well, if I come from the left, then the does won't be able to see me because I'll be up on that hill. But I don't know how far. There was one hill that I could see that I thought I could shoot him from. I was like, I don't know how far that is from him. And I was having trouble with that one hill. Like, which one is that on this map? And, so long story short, we went down into the very bottom of this draw and just basically walked till we got like 100 or a little more, probably 120 yards from him or so. And then started crawling. And I didn't see him from the time we were a half mile till we were like 120 yards. And when I finally found him, I was just barely peeking through grass with the binos and like, scared me when I saw him in the binos. I was like, it felt like he was like 30 yards, And so anyway, long story short, we crawled up to 50 and just worked our way real slow. And when we got to kind of the top of this little ridge, it was about as far as we could go to him. Like at that point, the hill starts to lay over and we're really exposed, So we get in this blue stem or whatever, and I'm on my chest and kind of like my hands under my chin or whatever, and I'm just been belly crawling, and I'm like looking up at him through the binos and looking through grass to the point where I can barely see his horns through the grass, and that's as far as I'm going up, And so I'm glassing him, and I'm kind of thinking about it. I'm like, I start ranging these little bushes or plants out beside him, and I'm coming up with 49.50. And I did it like 2 or 3 different times while we're sitting there, and I'm just like, okay. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, that's where he's at. He's at 50. He's right in there. And so I moved my sight to 50. I've never shot a deer over 40, and moved my sight to 50. And I'm like, okay, if I take this shot, I need to focus. I need to burn a hole through this dude with my eyes, and my pin does not need to be floating around. I just need to stop. I just need to not pull the trigger, because the last thing I want to do is to be chasing this deer all day, especially since KC's gone. It's just
we already chased one 2 days ago.
Well,
Tired of that.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like at this point, I'm like, the likelihood of me doing that anyway at 50 is high, because it's just, you never know. Margin for error is small, but I was like, I just got to make sure I'm laser focused and that I feel good about it. Otherwise, I'm not going to pull the trigger. And I don't normally say that to myself, like if it's a 20-yard shot, I'm pulling the trigger. Yeah. I'm going to find a way to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? I know it sounds bad.
If you can get the full draw, you can get
that's
shot.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I was like thinking about this, and we sit there for like 45 to an hour probably.
I know. I'm kind of like on the edge of my seat at home, because you're kind of communicating some of this stuff to me as much as you could, and I'm like, okay, what's going on?
Eric was helping me, communicate.
Yeah.
And at some point I finally got Eric up close to me, and I told him, I was like, okay, if he stands up, when he looks away, I'm going to get up and shoot. So you just get up when I get up, and start videoing. And then we kind of got the camera focused on those bushes I was ranging, because I knew that's where he was. So we kind of had it pre-focused and everything, And we're sitting there, and I'm basically like, my back's killing, and I'm sitting there, like I said, like just I would put my head just down towards the dirt for 5 to 10 seconds max, and then I'd look up and put the binos on and see what he's doing, and I'd do it again for like 5 or 10 seconds. I looked up 1,000 times.
I know that feeling, like the top of your traps or whatever right here.
Yep.
Because it's just not a natural thing to hold your head up on the ground like that. You remember even from like your days playing Xbox when you were a kid, right?
Yes.
You're sitting there on your elbows and you're holding your head up, and then like after 10 minutes of Mario Kart, you're like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with my body?
I can't move.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's what was going on. And so I'm just back and forth, and we're kind of talking a little bit or whatever, and we're, planning things or whatever. And so I'm thinking the deer's looking at me. He falls asleep at one point. I look at his rack, and it's laid over in the grass. I'm like, I think about it. I'm like, should I like just get up and draw and see if the does will like wake him up or something? Yeah. Didn't. I chilled out. I got moved a little bit during that moment, actually, a little bit better. I was sitting on my left side a little bit, just kind of like my left hip touching as opposed to my right both touching, or right and left both touching. So that way I could kick my feet out real quick and sit on the ground as soon as I needed to, and draw sitting on the ground. And so he it's been like 45, 50 minutes, an hour, something like that. And you have a nickname for Eric?
Eagle Eye Eric?
No, not that one.
Oh.
I don't want to dog on him while he's not here, but I think he did.
Listen,
I think he called him this on the podcast he was on, but false alarm Eric or something like that. So, he's it's all in good spirit, but I hear like it sounds like a group of blackbirds get up or something, it's like kind of noise and some weird bird noises in there. And he was like, "What was that?" And I was like, I kind of did this like, it's just some birds, or whatever. And I kind of like wrote it off, didn't think much of it, because I was like, he probably thought that the deer ran off or something.
He's also jumpy because we had that situation where we weren't quite sure what the noise was, and it ended up being the giant at 20 yards.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's on edge about that.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but luckily he was on edge, and it gave me I was looking up every 5 or 10 seconds, right? Yeah. But it gave me just enough caution to look up at the deer. Because I was like, I wonder, because remember the metal arc that spooked the deer that you were stalking in 2018 or whatever?
A lot. Yeah.
So I look up, and this dude is a giant standing up broadside, looking directly away. And I was not ready. Like mentally, all the preparation I did, I was not ready to.
Oh, it's deer.
You have to make the call. You know what I mean? You have to say, now's the moment that I'm going to spook this deer. Because that's the whole thing. The whole time I'm thinking, there's no way I kill this deer. We're just doing stupid stuff in the middle of the day.
Because you have every capability in the world. Like, you're good at this. However, probability and statistics are real.
Yeah.
2 days ago, I shot one off the ground. How many attempts has Team Element made on the ground?
Oh, tons.
Tons, like in the 30s. Who knows,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, just in general, I know that thought's running through your head because you're a logical guy. You're like, we already did it this week. Probably not going to happen, right?
I told our buddy Tony Peterson earlier, I was like, dude, we've done this so many times and it's failed so many times that like literally now K.C. and I just laugh when we do this together.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll go stalking through the grass. We'll be like 60 yards from a deer laughing, because we're like, we pretty much don't expect this to work. So we're just going to make jokes with each other now and just have fun, and we don't even get down now when we spook deer, on the ground. So I'm like,
I was a little down when he spooked the big one the first time. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I was too. That one hurt. That was the biggest deer either one of us had pretty much ever seen. But so we're sitting there the whole time. I'm sitting there I literally told Eric from like a half mile from this deer, I said, man, I just don't want to sit here and waste all day with this thing. Let's just go in and, we'll make an attempt, but I'm not going to spend all day doing this thing. This is stupid. I mean, we're just not going to kill this deer, and we go in and quickly get to 50 yards fairly quickly, and so we sit there for forever. Like I said, I'm not expecting it to happen. And now this deer is standing broadside looking directly away. Like all his blind spot is facing us. And you have to make the call, and you're like, and another guy's with you. So there's kind of like, he depends on you to make the right call too, And so I literally am like, when I see that, it was almost like slow motion. I'm sure it happened in a split second, but I was like, do I do it? Do I do it? I mean, there's no better time to do it. This is the best time. And so I literally start to sit up and I go, here we go. I told Eric that like out loud. I say, here we go. And so I kick my feet around, I sit up and I go to clip on to my pink D-loop. That's high vis. I cannot get that sucker clipped on, dude. I'm telling you, I was missing over and over again. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm thinking, I'm not looking at the deer, but I'm like, him and 3 does are for sure looking at me right now. I'm just peeked up way above this grass trying to hit my D-loop. And I finally get that sucker on, and I fully expected him to be looking when I looked up. He's still doing the exact same thing, fully relaxed. I rip it back, and I hold it on him, and it is floating all over the place. I got a straight headwind, and it's just all over. And I'm like, this is not good. And so I'm not pulling the trigger. And I have never held this long on a deer that I didn't have to hold. Like you pull back and you don't have a shot for a while.
We talk about this a lot. Like our hold time is a half a second usually. And I guarantee you, like, when I shot my deer, I processed like 7 different details to make the decision to shoot, and it literally, it's probably 3/4 of a second. Yeah. Time slows down.
It does.
Insane. And I bet you felt like you were holding for 3 minutes.
Oh, dude, it was forever, dude. I kept thinking, like a part of me was like, if he looks back, just shoot. And I was like, no, I can't do that. I'm thinking it's floating around. And dude, just like magic almost, like it locks in the spot and just stops floating. And I'm like, And I just start to squeeze. And dude, it flies. And I'm like watching it in slow motion, obviously. It's like flying so dang good, man. It's like going perfect, and it's a long shot, so I get to watch it, and it's just dropping in. And of course, on a long shot, you have time to think about it, and you kind of worry about like, where's it actually going to hit?
Oh yeah, is it going to drop in there?
Yeah.
We're shooting heavier arrows, right? We're shooting those vectors.
Yep.
And with a heavier arrow, you got a little bit of an arc compared to like the old 400 grainers that we used to shoot. Yeah. So it's like, man, this thing's going to miss him over the back every time, you know?
Yeah, but it's like, it is looking good, you know? And I'm like, oh, and then all of a sudden when it hits, it kind of it shocks you, like you didn't expect it to hit that moment or whatever. And it hits kind of low. And I was like kind of shocked a little bit. I was like, ooh, because I thought it was going to be money in the bang, dude. And so I start to grab another arrow. This dude turns and runs to us. I'm like grabbing another arrow. I'm knocking this sucker, and I get clipped on. He runs like 30 yards past us. And when I knock it, or when I clip on and get my bow up to try to turn and get to him, I look up, and he is closer than when I shot him. He's at like 40 yards, and this sucker is going down. Dude, and he goes down right there, and I like, it was amazing. I mean, it's like a cliche thing to say, but like I literally went from 10 seconds prior fully not expecting to actually even get a shot at this deer we're 50 yards. Like, seriously, like, am I going to actually get a shot from this? There's 3 does here. You know, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And from that to 10 seconds later, there's a giant dead on the ground. And I just turned around, and the only thing I think was like, if KC was here, he would tackle Eric. So I'm tackling Eric.
I love it.
So I just tackled him, dude, and we freaked out, dude. Like, you can see the moment when I turn around after the deer falls and look at the camera and Eric, and you can see the full, like, shock. I just did not believe that it was actually going to happen, and it did.
Yeah.
And turns out that the old Vector ZMR is, he said I could say it.
Yeah, I know it.
That old Vector ZMR literally went through the center of the heart.
Yeah.
It was the perfect shot. And let me just tell y'all, it is in slow motion, super slow, fully crisp, 4K, fully focused footage. And it is the baddest clip.
It's the
dude.
mystical flight, dude.
It is.
It is.
Old Ted.
I love that on the ground stuff because if you ever do get to shoot, like, you can see the arrow through the air the whole time.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
It is, dude. It's the mystical flight, and that's what we've got footage of now. And so it's going to come out in the next few weeks probably. But the deer literally went, he probably in total went about 50 yards. I mean, whatever. He was kind of back behind me, and he was 50 yards from me. So, you know, he went 50, 60 yards and died closer to us than when I shot him. It was just an amazing moment, man. Like, I went from hunting this deer for 10 days on a property and expecting like that to be my season, was to continue trying to hunt this deer in the next few weeks. And we were leaving the next day and to basically just hunting a backup spot on a wind and finding a giant. And just, it all worked out. Shooting him from 50, dude. It was just, you know, I think, you know, the experience that you and I have gained by being able to do this so much and just being blessed to be out there a lot helped me a lot in this situation. I mean, I was able to take a 50, which I just never thought I would even attempt on a whitetail deer, and put it literally in the heart, and to have the like discipline to not pull the trigger until it was locked in, and for it to lock in, just a blessing, you know. But like, man, what a incredible day. And I was talking to you about it, but like, you know, they're just to breathe air and to watch the sunrise and to see the stars at night, for you and me to be here, for you and I to be able to walk into the woods, all blessings. For people that are listening to be able to listen and talk about and dream about deer hunting, like blessings, right? But there are moments like this that are just like above and beyond. And so like it gets easy for us to breathe thousands of times a day and just take it for granted. It's a little bit harder to take for granted a moment like that. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it really does just, I don't breathe a breath and think, God, thank you. And then breathe another breath, think, God, thank you. And maybe I should. I definitely should. You know, I feel like I should, right? But I don't. But when that happens, the first thing I think of is just what a blessing. You know, so
absolutely,
it's a good reminder that that opportunity doesn't happen very often, and that was a very special moment. So I mean, it was just incredible, dude.
It's so cool, dude.
We went and got food that night.
Good stuff. I tell you what, dude, this deer's unbelievable. Like, tell us about the deer.
So he is, he's a typical mainframe 10, but his G4s are pretty short.
Yeah.
So he almost looks like an 8.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought he was a 9 until we actually got to him, got to him dead on the ground. I thought he was a 9. I think the longer of his G4s when he stood up, and I recognized it, and I didn't look at his horns at all. I just knew he was big enough, you know. I did know he had 4 kickers, at least. That's what I told maybe you or Hunter or my dad or something. He has more than that. I don't know. I think he's got, like, I don't know how many you can actually technically count, because there's some that are like right at an inch or so. But there's I think there's at least 6 little like knob kickers and stuff on his tines. He's the
kind of deer that East Texas folks call like a 15-point or something.
Yeah.
You know,
no, an East Texas person would probably call this either a 16, 17, or 18 point, something like that. Yeah. And I hadn't even added all of what I think his points are or whatever, but his tines are just bladed out. His mass is unreal. You can barely, I think it's his left side. No, his right side, I believe. You can barely get your fingers around, which is such a cliche thing people like to say also in East Texas. But like his pedicle, you for sure can't get your hands around. You know?
No. Huge.
I mean, he's massive.
This is one of those deer. So I never saw this deer in person. I saw footage of him. We have trail camera footage of him, which that's kind of an important thing to talk about a little bit because we had one of those Moultrie Deltas set up, and that's kind of what gave you the confidence to go in there and hunt because we kept on seeing deer on that cell cam.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was like, well, we've hunted this thing a lot, but man, they're still in here, you know, because that area is not all that sensitive because, you know, there's a lot of nooks and crannies and cover and all kinds of stuff. You know, you can go in there and apparently shoot a deer and then 2 days later shoot another one, right?
Yeah.
So like it's good for that. But I think what I was trying to get at is that this deer is just another class of animal that most people don't really get to see. Like I was looking at 2 sheds I had at my house. You know that 10-point shed or the 5-point side that I found this year in Kansas? I compared that to that 4-point side I found in 18. And that 4-point side is just a different, like they're both big and they're going to score pretty close. But that 4-point side is just a different animal.
Yeah.
Right?
The bone structure is different.
It's just different.
Yeah.
This deer would make that deer look like subordinate. That's what he is.
Yeah.
He's like, we talked about it. Like he looks like a high-fence deer.
He does.
He looks like a high-fence deer.
That's the thing I kept thinking when I was holding this rack was I've never shot a deer that looks like a high-fence deer. Like I've always shot these, you know, I've shot some big deer, but you know, they're fairly normal looking deer. And this deer is so like craggy and, you know, bladed
Craggy?
here. Yeah. Like just,
I don't know that one. Is that it?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's I think they use it for mountains a lot.
Yeah.
To describe mountains. But
Okay.
like
It's cool.
Yeah, like just knobs and blades in all different places and like, you know, massive.
Yes.
Like if you did the volume measurement like we should be doing to measure deer, he would displace some water for
This
sure.
deer, for sure, is the biggest deer that the element has shot while we've been the element. Possibly the biggest deer you've ever shot.
Score wise, possibly in that like different class of animal wise. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, like he may or may not score higher than that deer right there. But he might.
I think he will.
I think he will too.
I think we're going to get real scared if we ever get a tape out on this deer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of a fun thing to say, but like, it could be wild.
Yeah. The reason that I kind of think he's not like a super high scorer is because he's a basic an 8-point. You know, like he's like an 8-point with junk because his 4s are so small.
What was Chris's deer?
Yeah. And so that's something to talk about there is actually on the way home, Chris B., who a lot of you know, called me and we talked for like an hour and he was like, he was shocked that this deer was not related to his deer. He was like, I mean, not really shocked, but he like called, the first thing he said was like, where were you guys hunting? Because that deer looks so similar to my deer. I was like, well, K.C. could find your spot if you wanted to, but we didn't. We didn't go looking for it.
I know the general area. Don't you worry.
That's what he laughed so hard when I said that.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we talked about that. And if you haven't seen that deer, then you might be living in a rock or you might just not have seen it. But I mean, his deer was giant, but it is very similar to that deer. It's wild.
And his was a 184.
187. I believe. Maybe
Either
it was
way,
a 184.
Those are big. That's 14 to 17 inches bigger than that unit of measurement that a lot of people like to use.
Yes.
So if your deer looks similar to his, just saying.
Yeah, he's big.
It's going to be scary.
So anyway, just a massive deer. And
you've got 8 inches on Chris B. So, I mean.
Of height. Yeah. 8. You might be right on that. I don't know. I forget how tall he is because I haven't seen him since ATA.
I think he's 5'8" or 5'9", but Yeah, you're 6.
I thought he was like 6'8".
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All deer hunters look big,
Yeah,
till you see them in person.
that's right.
We talked about that after we got back from the ATA. But no, I think that was, just a great moment. And then one of the best moments after that was I went to the store and bought like a $7 strip steak that was really good. It was like it said New York strip on one label and it said K.C. strip on the other label.
There you go.
So I don't know if there's a difference.
K.C. strip was a denomination.
Well, I was like, dadgummit, man. It says KC on it, so I'm going to buy it. And I cooked it. I cooked it that night. I grilled it and ate it with a baked potato. And, dude, I'm telling you, after being sick all week and not eating hardly anything, it was the most delightful. I cooked it perfect, too. Just a good medium rare, dude. It was perfect. And it was so tasty, dude. And I was in heaven that night, dude. It was the best, man. So, but then 8 days later, I shot another deer that we're going to talk about in a few podcasts. So, but I'll tell you one thing, thinking about it is I feel like I have dialed in my setup pretty good right now. As soon as I say that, I'll go miss a deer, do something stupid, or not get past her or whatever. But like, you and I have talked about this a little bit, or quite a bit in the past, but like, there's a lot of guys shooting 600 plus grains or whatever. And these 2-blade fixed blades and stuff. And I don't think that that's bad, but, some people could consider that overkill for whitetails, right? And I've been shooting, a big, huge, like, what's it, like a 2.5 inch cut, mechanical broadhead.
I think that's right. It's like 3-blade.
Yeah, it's big 3-blade mechanical with it's front deploy, right?
Yeah,
that's what they call it. And so,
but high end.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's the good stuff.
It's not a cheap one. It's built out of good quality products. And I'm shooting this Vector ZMR arrow, which is a little bit lighter than their hammer. And so what I like about it is that I get a little flatter arrow trajectory. So when I'm shooting at 50, I don't have quite as much drop, right? And so a little bit more margin for error from a shooter standpoint. And then a big broadhead that can take away from some penetration. And the last 3 deer I've shot with it, I've had, it's passed all the way through. The last 2 deer, it didn't come out, actually. They both broke off. So, like, when their shoulders go, they break it off or whatever. But it's full pass through.
2 holes.
2 holes on all the last 3 deer, which those are the only 3 deer I've shot the ZMR with. And I've watched all of them die within, like, 50 yards of running. And I feel like, and I hit a rib on that Kansas buck, and he's big. I hit a big rib because I felt it when I was gutting him, and it was a sharp piece sticking in, on that entry. So, like, I know I'm like right in there of what I need to be, I feel like. Obviously now if you hit a shoulder, things could definitely change. And so, there's a worst case scenario you could prepare for, but there's also like these 3 instances where I have really destroyed 3 deer, and like it's been over fast, and that's exciting and fun. You know what I mean?
Lethality.
It's lethal. Yeah. And I feel like, I guess what I'm saying is like my weight on that ZMR is almost perfect. I feel like, because it's a
really nice weight.
Is
it 530?
So the total is 523 or 5 or something like that.
That's
525.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah. It's like
for
525.
whitetail, and honestly,
125 grain broadhead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the lower 48 that you can't go shoot with that deal.
Yeah. I feel like I could put a 2-blade on and go hunt elk with it too, So, dudes kill them with lighter than that all the time.
I've killed 2 elk and they've both been with mechanicals.
Yeah.
So, you can kill some elk with a mech.
Yeah.
Don't let nobody tell you can't.
Maybe
however, y'all don't be yelling on the podcast. A good fixed blade's good. But I don't know if people know about your thumb deal. And I think that, if you're cool with talking about this.
I don't even know what we're talking about here. So I love making fun of myself about
I'm not making fun of you. It's a real thing, and it might be something that other people encounter that they feel like they're the only one out there. So it's probably worth talking about. It's not like you have like a spina bifida or something, and like you're in bad shape. Not to make a lot of those people. Sorry, like you have some sort of anatomical difference. I'm not going to say deformity because that'd be rude, right? But,
I mean, dude,
yeah, but,
you know me. I don't care.
Yeah, but like the way your thumb connects into the rest of your hand doesn't allow you to do like an OK around the grip of a bow like most people would. It's much more kind of a pincer kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not that you look
I'm
weird.
just a crab.
That's right. But
Here we go.
In that, that's right, crawfish man. In that, you are, I guess, more likely to have torque or something with the way that you're shooting your bow, just because you can't get as flat of a surface where the grip meets your hand.
Yeah.
Right?
So like essentially, to help explain, I don't know if I've broken. I know I've messed my thumbs up in football quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't think about stuff when I get hurt, really.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't pay attention. But like, I can't remember if they were ever like this. But basically, if you look at the tip of your thumb, where your fingernail tip is, and you go down to the first joint, I can bend that one.
Yeah.
Okay. All the way down the rest of the joints, there's no bend in the joints on both thumbs. I don't know if I was born like that. I can't remember. But there's only
you got a knuckle there. It just doesn't bend much.
Yeah. So like the one that's in your wrist where the thumb connects, I can move it. But essentially from the first joint from your thumbnail down to the wrist is like fused. It's like 4 inches of fused. So like I always make fun of I don't have opposable thumbs.
Yeah.
Disposable. But like, so I can't even get up to the shelf on the riser.
Yeah.
Because it makes, like I can't like put my grip right. Yeah.
Right?
It does cause pain. I have to like move my grip down like an inch. And so, yeah, it's very weird. So I guess what you're going to is the fact that there's torque.
For you, the most ethical choice might be a mechanical at all times because you just anatomically are more apt to have some sort of torque and like slightly off arrow flight.
I shot the iron wheel wide that you gave me to try it because I knew that I might, shoot something like that in the grass or some other time this year. And dude, it was going nuts. And I'm not like. It may not even be able to be with the thumb or whatever.
Actually, that wasn't even a wide. That was just standard iron wheel.
Was it?
Yeah,
well,
which
it was bad.
Doesn't have as much crazy as like a wide would.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I definitely am putting some torque there. So it's nice to have something that is forgiving. Especially, I think most people can relate to this that are listening to the podcast. Like, have some forgiveness because. I mean, even, man, I don't know, like a lot of people only get to go a few times a year and only get to shoot every once in a while because they work really hard and stuff. So, mechanical may not be a bad option. But I can tell you all right now, a giant mechanical on the front of a Vector ZMR, which you might see next year, available to buy.
Oh, you will. I talked to Isaac today. It's coming, guys. Be ready.
That is
buy the hammers now. Oh, we need to talk about that right quick. Okay. So, we are... Of course, we work with Vector, love Isaac to death. The arrows are bad at the bone. We break them all the time because we shoot big bucks, right? But otherwise, they don't break and because they are thick-walled, heavy arrows, heavy duty. You've been shooting the ZMRs. They're coming out soon. I shoot the HMRs. I like a little bit heavier arrow. I don't know.
About 570?
No, I'm 599.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Heavy dog.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want to be 600 though, because that's just excessive.
That's when you get to make fun of yourself.
That's right. No, I actually might look at a ZMR and shoot and just kind of see what I think, later. But I'm real happy with the hammers because they fly. I mean,
I shot the Nebraska buck with a hammer, and I'm glad I had it because it went through a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So
yeah, but. We're going to do a giveaway via Instagram for a dozen hammers. So what you need to do Thursday, whatever the date is, Thanksgiving Day, we're going to post a picture. It'll be the day this comes out, and we'll give you probably through the weekend or something to tag two buddies and make sure you follow Vector Arrows, and we'll give away a dozen arrows to somebody and get those out to you pretty quick. That way you can use them for the rest of the season. So you were talking about Vector for something that made me bring that up.
I was just saying that that ZMR with the big broadhead has been just like it almost seems like just the perfect amount of weight behind that big broadhead. So something that, maybe maybe that you can try out as well if you want to do that in the future, if you're listening or whatever.
This is probably another podcast, maybe even an off-season podcast, but the mechanical hate is kind of gone a little bit overboard. I like fixed blades, don't get me wrong, but I shot that Nebraska buck or South Dakota buck with that same broadhead, and it destroyed him.
Yep.
You know, like, not to be graphic or rude, but like it did the job so well. I liked it. And I saw a post today where a guy hit a deer in the scapula, like deep into the heavy part with a 3-blade mech and went right through it, and he was shooting a heavy arrow. So
how about it?
Yeah, that's the thing, dude. It's like, if you're shooting 420 grains with a big mech on the front of it, like, there's a good chance you only get one hole and maybe not even get both lungs, right? But if you got something behind it, you got 90 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, like, slap something on the front of it and shoot them, you know?
Yeah.
Like, don't go with something cheap that's going to break, you know? But, like, find you something, whatever works good for you, whatever you can shoot the best and be the most lethal with, and go out there and shoot a deer with it.
Yeah. Look at some anatomy charts, man. Study some different ones, because there's going to be some that are a little weird. So you just want to look at what most of them are showing, you know? But I think it's a good setup. And I just want to also mention, man, I know we mentioned it earlier, but OnX was a huge part of this. And this is a shameless plug for them, because we were able to, locate the property because of OnX. It's very easy, you know, to find public land pieces. That's a very helpful aspect. But to find this deer, to mark him, that way I knew when to peek up and look for him, and about how far he would be, you know, because we can measure everything. And then also just, man, to mark the deer after and be able, because we came in from a completely different direction, so we didn't have to come 3/4 of a mile, you know, to come get him. So to be able to do that on, you know, and mark everything and mark your truck when you leave places, I mean, it's just so handy. It's so intuitive. You and I have been using it for, you know, since 2016 or 17, somewhere in there. I mean, it's been years, you know, for us. It's been working well, and you know, we're very glad to be partnered with them and to be able to use that product, for them to be so gracious as to help support what we do in so many ways. And like you talked about this off of air, dude, like, we just use this thing every day, and it's a part of what we do, man.
Yeah.
So
I think that it ain't as integral for everybody, and if you're listening and you know you got your 80 acres that you hunt every season, maybe get you some OnX, check it out, see if you like it. It might not be for you, but if you do the public land thing, especially out of state,
dude,
can't be no brainer.
Yep, that's it, man.
Yeah.
So,
well, congrats on the giant buck,
thanks, dude.
It's like amazing, and I love being a part of the element, because I feel successful too, because you killed it, dude.
Dude, I was like tackling you when you shot your deer. I was like, it's such a good feeling, man.
I know, dude.
You know, like, and that's what I was telling our buddy. I keep saying, referring to Tony, but I talked to him recently for like 2.5 hours. But I was telling him, I was like, man, you know, we work hard together on this stuff, man. Like, and it's really hard when you and I are hunting 2 different areas at the same time. But when we're hunting in a similar area, it's like imperative, man. And I told him, like, we listen to each other. It doesn't mean we always do whatever, you know, the other guy says, but like, we always are taking into consideration what the other guy is saying, because we know that both of us are experienced in this and work really hard at it. And I mean, killing these deer, I bet you we would kill a lot less deer if you and I didn't chat on this stuff every night, pretty much, you know? So it's just being a part of the element is awesome, man. It's fun that we get to, you know, help each other out. And now that we've added Hunter and Chris and Eric, and it's just been so much fun, man. Like, we've been really able to, like, South Dakota was a blast, man, you know, and we've got all kinds of new inside jokes and sayings now, so it's just so much fun.
Mr. Astigmatism, dog. That's right.
Dude, that is a good moment. We watched that last night, actually.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, we are real thankful for all of our partners that have worked with us this year as well. You know, it's nice to have some people that really do believe in you. I'll tell you what, man, that was a lot of fun. There's still a lot more left.
I know.
We were talking about that today. Like, we are pretty blessed being from Texas that I mean, season's still like a month and a half left of deer hunting.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
I know, dude.
It's going to go fast, though.
It is. It is going to go fast because we got a lot of things coming up. You know, one thing we're going to do, and KC and I are going to talk about sometime either today or tomorrow probably, is there are going to be some sort of get-together / workshop type days coming up in the postseason. So if you want to be a part of that, keep in touch with us here on the podcast or in Instagram or whatever.
Get on that Element DIY Facebook group because that's kind of the place that stuff starts floating around the first. We've been getting a couple messages about that, about what are we going to do in the spring, this and that. You know, we did something last year, and we're going to do something kind of like that again this year because I like that stuff, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So we're gonna do that. Hopefully, we can help more and more people kill big deer. Not necessarily because we're the experts, but more that just we spend a lot of time doing it, and we can all learn some things from each other.
Pretty pop culture word these days called collective. You hear collective a lot.
Collective.
It actually, when we get a bunch of guys together who hunt, it's a collective of people who have a lot of experience. Just how you and I talk about, bouncing things off of each other. Everybody has different experience levels, but everyone has experienced a unique set of circumstances and has something to input, and that's what these things are. Yeah. So if you feel like you want to be a part of the element, we're kind of full up on like full-time guys right now, guys. But however, we'd love to just involve you more. First thing you can do is head over to our website and buy a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. It helps us out a ton. You can rep us. We'll rep you. Tag us in it. We'll put you on story and all that kind of stuff and just kind of build the community. It'll be fun. And if you haven't, Hunter Dickens shot a actually pretty nice East Texas buck, man, which is a pretty big accomplishment. Haven't shot an East Texas buck in a while. Okay, so outside of a meat buck,
the meat buck, dude, right.
infamous meat buck, right? But it ain't the easiest thing to do in the world. I know that Michigan's way harder than Texas, all right, but I mean, just tell you, it probably wasn't very easy for Hunter to make that happen. So if you haven't watched that, it's a pretty cool hunt. Go watch it over on YouTube and make sure you're subscribed while you're there. Anything else?
Man, I don't think so, y'all. I guess one thing I'd say, man, is a lot of people were talking about lockdown recently, and there's definitely some truth to it. But at the same time, dude, there's also deer leaving does every day, and there's also deer that are starting to run out of does, and they're trying to find them. So go sit in a corridor or in a funnel or a pinch and get a wind that's perpendicular to that travel pattern and kill a deer before it gets to your wind, and it can happen.
We released a podcast recently with Jared Mills. He talks a lot about food sources and about how to hunt those deer on those funnels and pinches and that sort of stuff. So go listen to that if you haven't. Another thing to lift spirits right now, tell you the truth, is that we just went through the worst moon phase of November.
Yeah.
It's getting better from here on out. We've crested. We are waning at the moment, and as the days go on, it actually gets better until, whenever the deer just stop doing ruddy stuff. But
well, as Hunter would say, it's like it's a purple moon perpendicular to the 72-degree prime meridian.
Yes, exactly.
That it's slightly underfoot, but slightly overhead at the same time, and there's a pink tint to the east side of it, I think. So
41st parallel, I think.
That's exactly right, and that's how you know that the deer are going to be moving at 11 a.m.
That's it. Hunter, last week, I was in Oklahoma. We'll have to talk about that hunt sometime. It's not over yet, but he texted me a couple times. I saw a lot of deer movement between 10 and 12. I bet you did, bro.
Well, I'll say this on the next podcast, but we did do an all-day sit recently, and there wasn't much happening in the middle of the day. But anyway, that's all I got, man.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Well, guys, remember to be thankful for everything you've been blessed with, and also be thankful for your suffering, because you know what? Sooner or later, that's going to pay off. And if nothing else, it reminds you of your humanity and how you're imperfect.
Absolutely.
Right? So remember that, and remember this is your element.
Live in it.
Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some Meat Eater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls because I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.